a pleasure to be at the 10th anniversary. Um, I'm going to go into the discussion with some of the results of the economic team at the United Nations. By the way, the affiliation that is written, the schedule is outdated and working with the United Nations at this moment. I was indeed at the University of Cambridge before, and before that I was with the Levy Economics Institute. The problems that we are facing now with the world economy are really known to everyone, and I'm only going to enunciate them here. And I'm sure within these 3 days on this you have plenty of new material to think about. One of them is obviously that of uneven global income distribution. That's a persistent problem. Our friend Tabata has spoken extensively about that with developing this concept of underconsumption. I took up some of his work in a paper with Francis Phillips, and we analyzed the global economy as an economy in which consumption is being out of income, and in some parts of the world is paid by excessive lending, leading therefore to tremendous imbalances which cause the financial crisis and continue to cause problems. In addition to that, there has been going through the last years towards the financial crisis and then after tremendous pressure on the balance sheets of the private sector, and that has led to the collapse that we have seen already, collapse that have been anticipated by few economists. Together with that, we have the unregulated financial institutions which continue to be unregulated and are still even more have enjoyed after the financial crisis a greater concentration of power. And together with that, over the last 2 or 3 years, there has been increasing pressure on the balances of the public sector, perhaps forgetting that a big part of that is caused, great part of that is caused by bailing out the private sector even after the financial crisis. And in conclusion, with all these factors, we have a problem with inadequate aggregate demand for the global economy, and together with that, we have continuous pressure on natural resources. At any moment that the economy seems to pick up, there is increasing prices of raw materials of energy. All this leaves very few possibilities ahead, and one of them is what has been called the modeling through option. And that is something that we constructed in the United Nations as a baseline scenario, not because it is the most probable forecast, but because it is technically the simplest to draw toward the future as a baseline to start working on scenarios after that. One of the characteristics of this is the typically very slow growth recovery of the developed economies now in the brink of recession, and caused by financial fragility, by the continuous deleveraging of the private sector, which indeed gives the character of what is typically called a balance sheet recession. Important monetary policy that we knew it for a long time, and at this moment a very unwelcome fiscal policy. Emerging economies, the major emerging economies, have managed to grow at a relatively moderate pace, and it is moderating still, and they remain vulnerable to trade, international trade and finance, and though the expectation has always been that a fully regionalized developing world would come about with another kind of alternative, this has not yet come through. We will discuss most probably the second or third day of this conference under the concept of decoupling. And then we have the problem of the other developing economies, which continue to depend on primary commodity exports. With all these conditions underneath, we can talk of growth is another baseline, which is plotted here. I hope you can see sufficiently. I have pre-grouped the plots with which we typically work in this slide to show a bit better. The United States will have a little dip according to this baseline, which, as I said, is a technical baseline, and will continue to grow at a lower pace than optimal growth. Europe even worse than that. Japan, other developed economies, and the rest, what I would call high-income economies of East Asia, have been managing also very disappointingly. China, India, and other developing Asia have managed to keep up with some pace of growth, which is enviable to others, but it's still disappointing to what their plans is. The CIS in West Asia, major oil exporters, have come to a much more moderate pace of growth than recently, and developing America and Africa, again, relatively positive rate of growth, but disappointing from what they actually expected. Together with the problem of growth, we continue to see a very uncomfortable and lengthy and disappointing resolution of the problem of global convergence. And what we see there in front is, according to this baseline, the distribution of income per capita, country versus country, not in terms of distribution. And then if you see the thicker blue line in the middle of the graph, that represents the income distribution for the world as a whole. And far above this thicker blue line, you have these two lines, the red line and the black line, which represents the income per capita of the richer countries. Crossing more or less the blue line, we have a purple line, which is the one of the CIS in West Asia, which recently managed to pass above the world average and far below the average the other groups of developing countries, with China, India, and other developing Asia surpassing in terms of income per capita the rest of developing countries, developing America and Africa. And yet, even if there is this surpass, you can see that the differences in terms of income per capita are huge, and that is still measured in purchasing power. So there is a disappointing convergence of incomes around the world, and there is also a major disappointment, even in this technical baseline, a major disappointment in terms of employment growth. We have estimated in the United Nations that it's about 55 million jobs that need to be recovered to be at the rate of employment that was before the crisis. And the pace of recovery, as you can see, is the first of the growth for the United States. The pace of recovery is tremendously slow, according to our estimates. It's only about 2019, 2018, and 2012 that they will be able to recover the employment of the years before the crisis. In Europe, the recovery of employment is different from that. In Japan, other developing countries and high-income countries of East Asia, there is a marked recovery of employment, but that is typically because of the pyramid of population growth in Japan, therefore exercising much more pressure on the labor force. Meanwhile, the countries in the developing world, they have fared pretty well. this new scenario that I'm going to present, I'm going to discuss what could be labeled the fiscal austerity scenario, which is the kind of scenario in which effectively countries, policymakers in most of the countries, they turn to fiscal austerity because they feel it's the safest option, at least from the point of view of what the media and mainstream economics has continued to say. And at the same time, they expect that despite the fact that at this moment private sectors in most of these developed countries have not really managed to sustain demand, they will expect that will give confidence to the private sector. But most typically, they are putting a lot of emphasis on export tourism. So the major characteristic of this new scenario that I'm presenting, the fiscal austerity scenario, is that together with fiscal austerity, which we know is going to weaken its aggregate demand, and together with the part that the private sector is not pulling yet from aggregate demand, then there is the hopes that there will be some gains in market shares of international markets, and that would lead therefore to problems of some zero gain between exporters in different industries, but not really to a better for the world as a whole. Now, in this scenario, the first thing I'm going to do is to present the growth results. And it is, I hope it is possible to see, but there is a red line below the blue line. I thought I made a sufficiently thick yesterday, but apparently it doesn't show. In the United States, the fiscal austerity scenario, I made a kind of aggressive assumption that fiscal austerity takes place in the developed world all at the same time. In reality, if there is a move towards aggressive fiscal austerity in the United States, it most likely be in the next year. So there is going to be a debate. But I didn't want to play with time lags in this presentation. So I'm assuming that we'll move into more radical fiscal austerity in the year 2012. In this case, the weakening of aggregate demand is very, very clear in the United States, leading to recession of nearly 1% rate of economic growth. I have 3 more minutes. And for Europe, the recession is even deeper. For Japan and other developing countries, the recession is initially deeper with a weaker recovery for various reasons that I will not be able to explain. Meanwhile, China, India, and other developing nations, this scenario will manage to keep up growth, but still actually half of the rate of growth that we showed before, the same for CIS in West Asia and the open America and Africa. I'm going to jump quickly to the other slides of this presentation because I think the interesting one is the one that comes afterward. But in this one, I discussed the levels of employment rate, which are obviously lower than the previous one, and I am also discussing the current accounts, which is the turns upside down because of precisely the pressures on international arrival. Now, this fiscal austerity scenario will not be obviously sooner or later. Policymakers have to really come to this, trying to find another kind of alternative. And what we are trying to propose is here employment growth scenario, which is one of the essential crucial proposals from the United Nations at the moment. And it's a scenario which is economically feasible, but it doesn't mean necessarily that it is economically feasible, it's politically feasible. This assumes a stronger stimuli, fiscal stimuli for the major part, with an emphasis on employment creation and also triggering a response to the private sector, particularly private investment. International coordinated, that's essential to avoid speculative attacks and also to help compensating global imbalances underway with effective debt or carbon alternatives and particularly development-oriented through infrastructure provision, know-how, production, etc. In this scenario, we do have employment recovery without recovery of growth. It's not as aggressive as what we want, but we were kind of moderate in designing this scenario, not really pulling the strings very much from what policymakers are prepared to take. But in all the